3 spine-chilling true weekend getaways, sinister secrets revealed and cursed, haunts exposed. The car's engine hummed soothingly as the urban chaos of Los Angeles melted into the rearview mirror. For Mark, Sarah, and their 2 kids, Mia and Sam, Willow Creek promised a slice of paradise away from their tech-infested lives. But beneath the whimsical facade of rustic charm lurked something unsettling. As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows danced menacingly around the winding road. Mia's nervous glances out the window intensified. "I don't like it here," she muttered. The flickering lights of the town greeted them like a sinister signal as dread pooled in the pit of Mark's stomach. Arriving at the cabin, the family gawked at its cozy wood-paneled walls, yet the warmth did little to ditch the odd aura. They felt the townsfolk's eyes track their every move. At the local bar, laughter stifled as they stepped inside. Conversations halted, and all eyes turned. A bartender forced a smile, then leaned in closer, urgency etched on his face. "You folks new here? You've heard the tale of the old leader, right?" His chuckle sounded hollow. "Just a local legend." Mark felt unease coat his skin like frost, but he urged his family to ignore the bizarre energy and enjoy their first night. Yet, as the night deepened, unease settled in. The cabin creaked eerily, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. Whispers seemed to echo in haunting tones. Around midnight, a gut-wrenching crash from outside shattered the uneasy stillness. Mark jolted awake. With a protective surge, he grabbed the flashlight, heart racing as he stepped into the ominous darkness. Outside, silence was suffocating. A fallen branch lay strewn across the ground, yet as he turned back, cold trepidation climbed his spine. Fleeting shadows darted between the trees. His body grew rigid, caught in gruesome curiosity and fear. The dawn brought a chilling heat. The family set off for the woods, bolstered by adrenaline and the fresh scent of pine. A forgotten path emerged, leading to an abandoned schoolhouse. Broken windows gaped like mouths, ready to scream. As they stepped inside, a frigid dread wrapped around them. Dusty desks cluttered the room, remnants of laughter that tragically faded. The stillness was shattered by distant children's laughter, malignant and conspicuously out of place. Sam darted back, terror-stricken. As twilight draped over the cabin once again, peculiar occurrences escalated. A shadow scratched messages into the walls. Strange symbols marred the forest floor near the schoolhouse. The townsfolk's wide smiles grew too conspicuous, too eager. They locked eyes with the family, an unspoken connection of conspiracy forming. Mia wandered the edges of the woods alone, just as night fell. An irrational fear swelled. "Where is she?" Mark shouted in a voice trapped between panic and authority. Shadows morphed into monsters, twisting secrets buried deeper than the earth itself. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Heartbeats echoed like thunder in the night. The wind howled through the trees, wrapping around them like a spectre. Panic twisted around their trust, darkness eager to spit them apart. They rushed towards the woods, desperation clawing at their throats. Each step felt like a threat, each rustle a reminder of looming danger. What lurked just beyond their flickering flashlights? Who could they trust when shadows danced wickedly around them? They were no longer just a family on vacation. They were prey in a game cloaked in sinister darkness. "Please, we have to find her." Mark's voice cracked with urgency as they sprinted deeper into the woods, the trees wrapping their gnarled branches around them, closing in like a trap. Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps, her eyes wide with terror. Sam, shaking and frightened, stumbled after them, his small hands slipping from his mother's grasp. "Mia!" Mark bellowed, forcing a beam from the flashlight to pierce through the encroaching darkness. The eerie silence answered him, not even a rustle from the leaves. The heavy scent of damp earth filled the air, wrapping around them like a shroud. As they pressed on, the laughter that had echoed earlier returned. But now it was louder, mocking. It came from all directions, twisting, taunting. It drew them forward, yet each step made them question if they were heading towards their daughter or into something far more sinister. Mark's heart pounded so loud he thought he might choke on the sound. They stumbled upon the old schoolhouse again. The broken windows loomed larger in the night, like watchful eyes, and the wooden door creaked in a wind that seemed to scream. Just then, a soft, eerie giggle broke through the sinister chords of silence. Mark's heart raced as he pushed through the door, flashlight slicing through the darkness. Dust motes danced in the beam, and the air felt heavier, thick with forgotten memories. "Mia!" His voice was choked with desperation. Inside was a hollow shell of the innocent laughter that had once filled the air. Desks were overturned, and the chalkboard was covered in incomprehensible scrawls, symbols that churned the stomach. The dread pooled within him. What had once felt like a getaway was now drowning in horror. And then he saw it, an old photograph taped to the wall. 4 children stood in front of the school, 2 boys and 2 girls, all smiling, that mockery of innocence. But the girl's eyes, one was shaded, as if hidden from the light. Mark shivered as he stepped back. It felt like she was watching him, aware of the unfolding tragedy. Did Mia resemble her? With panic fueling him, he turned to find Sarah and Sam huddled behind him, fixated on a dark corner of the room. "What?" he demanded, voice trembling. They stared, inevitable dread dawning upon them. Slowly, shadows began to pour from the walls, crawling along the floor like dark smoke. In a heart-stopping moment, they coalesced into ghostly figures, translucent and whispering. Whispers spilled out, forming a cyclone of sound, wrapping around the family tightly. "Careful," one of the figures warned, its voice like shattering glass. "She's one of us now." "No!" Sarah shouted, but the words echoed back, swallowed by shadows that pressed in closer, stealing their escape. Everything twisted and turned, the schoolhouse now a living maw, feeding on their fear. The walls trembled, and Mark's flashlight flickered, revealing glimpses of terrified faces. Children twisted into the darkness, like a perpetual nightmare. "Mia!" Mark yelled. Desperation clawed at his throat as he reached for the shadows, but they slipped like wisps of smoke, dissolving into the dark corners of the room. Suddenly, a tender voice floated through the chaos. "Daddy!" It pulled at Mark's heart, fragile and broken. "Mia!" He lunged forward, but the shadows entwined his legs, binding him. "Help me!" Her voice echoed, now distant. He could feel the weight of fear in the air, thick and suffocating. They were losing her. The light flickered one final time, and then it went out, engulfing them in utter darkness. Desperation surged through him, but it was swallowed whole by the eerie silence that followed. In that suffocating void, a new terror arose. They weren't just losing Mia, they were trapped in a nightmare, engulfed by the very fabric of Willow Creek. The air was heavy with the weight of secrets, locked away for too long, clawing its way into reality. But the shadows whispered again, drawing closer. "You must decide." What did that mean? The room pulsed with anticipation, waiting to reveal its darkest truth. As Mark struggled against the suffocating blackness, an icy fingertip brushed against his skin, chilling him to the core. In that moment of despair, he understood they were facing more than a search. They were confronting the very essence of the haunting terror that woke in the woods. What lay at the heart of Willow Creek? What dark choice awaited them? "Mark!" Sarah's voice shattered the silence, pulling him back from the edge of despair. A faint glimmer of light broke through the dense blackness as the flashlight sparked back to life, casting a meager glow in the consuming dark. Panic clawed at his throat as he struggled to free himself from the shadows that clung desperately to his legs. "Where are you?" he gasped, his voice hoarse. "I'm here!" Sarah cried, her tone dazed but still laced with courage. Sam clung to her side, eyes as wide as saucers, reflecting the dim light. Mark felt a rush of hope, but it was quickly buried by dread. That voice, he had heard it before, but without a body. It spiraled into the depths, as if mocking their desperation. "Mia!" he shouted again, lifting the beam of light into the dark corners of the room. Each flicker revealed spectres frozen in fear, wallowing in a sorrow that didn't belong to the living. Were they trapped in their own past? The shattered memory of joy twisted into agony surrounded them, a chorus of lost souls. "Daddy!" The voice of his daughter echoed again, this time clearer but dripping with desperation, sending icy fingers spidering down his spine. "Faster! We have to get to her!" Mark surged forward, pushing against the oppressive darkness that felt alive, as though it were pulsating in rhythm with their racing hearts. The shadows recoiled, swirling away from the light as if burnt by its presence. He felt the pressure lift slightly and bolted towards the source of the voice. He rounded a corner and stumbled into what remained of the main classroom. The floor was littered with remnants of shattered dreams, broken toys, dust-covered crayons, and an ancient globe that loomed like a reminder of worlds long past. In the far corner, a pulsing darkness quivered, pulling at him like a magnet. "Mia!" he yelled, heart racing, mind choking on fear. The shadows twisted and tightened into a shroud, but within that shroud he saw the outline of a small figure. "Mia!" "Daddy!" Her cry was mingled with despair, and he lunged again, heart pounding violently against his ribcage as he reached into the dark. The space felt alive with tortured whispers, calling out in shrieks, soaked in sorrow. "Stand back!" Mark yelled, clutching the flashlight like a weapon, ready to batter through anything that stood between him and his daughter. Suddenly, the classroom erupted in chaos. Shadows ripped from the walls, howling and swirling in violent fury. "No, no!" Sarah screamed, shielding Sam. The noise crashed over them like waves, breaking their resolve. In the tempest, a single ghostly hand reached out from the shadows, grasping at Mia. The eyes of the spectral face glinted with unholy glee, drawing Mia deeper into the abyss. "Mia!" In a swift motion, the grip of shadows shifted, and Mark felt the ground beneath him give way. "Help!" Sam screamed, but their voices were drowning in the cacophony around them. Before they could react, Mark slipped, tumbling down into a darkness darker than the night. He hit the cold earth below, flashlights scattering around him. For a second, silence reigned, an ominous calm before the storm. "Help!" Sam's voice echoed in the distance, followed by the chilling laughter that had led them into this nightmare. Just then, Mark grasped a familiar object, his daughter's backpack. Clenching it tightly, he stood, adrenaline surging through his veins. He was not just searching for Mia anymore. He was fighting to reclaim her from something that thirsted for despair. As if sensing his determination, the shadows inched back, forming a path that led deeper into the school's darkness. Something was waiting for them. Something more terrible than they had imagined. "Come on!" he called, urging his family to follow, but the shadows seemed to coil tighter at their heels. What if they couldn't get Mia back? What choice had they made in being drawn here? With each step into the dark, a chilling sense of wrongness gripped him. The air crackled with malevolence, and the whispers crescendoed, warning, beckoning. "Mia!" he yelled, voice trembling. "I'm here!" But all he heard in response was laughter, hollow, echoes of children playing, twisted in torment. There was a choice to be made, and they were about to find out just what it meant to lose everything. What awaited them in the depths of this haunted school? What terrible bargain lurked within the shadows? Mark's heart raced as he plunged deeper into the darkness, his grip on Mia's backpack tightening. The shadows seemed to throb around him, alive and pulsating, and he could feel their chill prickling at his skin. "Keep moving!" he urged Sarah and Sam, but the darkness swallowed his voice, transforming it into a lament that echoed back at him. "Daddy!" The plaintive call reverberated through the air, slicing through the malevolence like a knife. He could almost feel her small hands reaching for him, a fragile thread pulling him toward her suffocating despair. "Keep going!" Sarah shouted, her eyes wide with terror, darting from corner to corner, searching for any signs of refuge. Sam pressed against her leg, his face a mix of fear and confusion, looking back as if expecting a phantom to leap at him from the shadows. As they moved, Mark felt an invisible force drawing him closer, the weight of despair heavy on his soul. The laughter echoed again, rising like a tide, swirling around them with insatiable greed. It was mocking. It was hungry. "Stop!" Mark commanded, his voice firm, trembling underneath the surface. He didn't know what they were facing, but the instinct to protect his family flared in him like a wildfire. He turned back, flicking the flashlight around wildly, illuminating the dilapidated walls that seemed to close in on them. "Listen," he said, trying to fight against the overwhelming panic. "Do you hear that?" Muffled cries merged with the echoes, a chorus of children's laughter twisted into something grotesque. They were not just voices. They were the remnants of lost souls, wrapped in tragedy, begging for release. "Mia!" he yelled, desperation clawing at his throat, hoping against hope. Suddenly, a flash of light illuminated a door at the end of the corridor, splintered and ajar, glowing eerily as though a beacon had emerged from the abyss. Mark's heart leapt. "There!" He pushed forward, but each step felt like wading through molasses, the shadows swirling tighter, pulling him back. "Mark!" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes reflecting fear and newfound determination. "What if it's a trap?" "Better than standing here," he shouted back, the urgency in his tone evident. He couldn't turn back. Not now. Not when his daughter needed him. The door beckoned him, whispering promises of hope mixed with dread. As they approached, the shadows thickened, curling like smoke, entwining around Mark's legs. Panic surged again. He began to feel stuck, like he was sinking into a pit. "Help me!" he gasped, struggling to move forward as Sarah grasped his arm, pulling him like a lifeline. "Go! We can't stay!" With a surge of will, he ripped his feet free, breaking the shadow's grip. They lunged towards the door, Mark pushing it wide open with a loud creak. The room beyond was void of light, but there, faintly, a figure lay crumpled on the floor. Mark's breath hitched. "Mia!" But as they stepped inside, the room exploded with chaos. The spectral laughter crescendoed, swirling into a violent storm, and the walls began to pulse as if they were breathing. "Get back!" Mark shouted, shielding Sarah and Sam. The shadows responded with heightened fury, streaking toward them like wild animals, hungry for souls. Then, amidst the tempest, a horrifying realization gripped him. The dark wasn't just a prison. It drew power from despair. Their fear was its sustenance. "Mia!" he yelled, the name torn from his throat, echoing into the abyss. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. An eerie silence hung heavy in the air. It was wrong, so very wrong. He couldn't tell if it was a cruel joke or something worse. A whisper broke through the heavy tension, soft and frantic. "Daddy, help me." His heart sank as the air grew colder, the shadows retreating just enough to reveal a flicker of light, a face, familiar yet distorted, creeping toward him through the darkness. It was Mia, but just beyond him, peering from the shadows, another figure, one that sent icy dread coursing through him. "Mark!" it crooned, voice dripping with malice, a sound he would never forget. As the figure emerged, more and more of it slipped into view, the air thickening with its presence. What had followed them here? Mark's breath quickened, his mind racing with terror. They had not chosen this darkness, but now it felt like it had chosen them. Was this the culmination of a struggle that would claim everything? As the figure lunged forward, darkness swallowing the light once more, Mark braced himself for a confrontation that might seal their fate. What horrors lay ahead? Would they be able to reclaim Mia, or was this the end of their journey? The shadows closed in like a sinister tide, leaving only uncertainty in its wake. The shadow surged forward, and all at once the room erupted in chaos. A low moan escaped Sarah's lips as Mark instinctively moved to shield her and Sam, thrusting them backward against the wall. The figure emerged completely, an unnatural grin stretching wide across its pale face. It was like staring into a mirror of nightmares. "Mia?" Mark's voice trembled, barely above a whisper, but he willed himself to stay strong. The spectre of his daughter stood mere feet from him, her eyes glossy and vacant. Their haunting light shimmered like a moth trapped in a flame. "Daddy, why did you leave me?" The words dripped with sorrow, yet they twisted into something darker, making his gut churn. He knew she was no longer just a lost little girl. She had become part of this twisted realm. "Step away from her!" Sarah shouted, her expression of terror morphing into fierce protectiveness. She positioned herself in front of Sam, glaring defiantly at the spectre, as if daring it to come any closer. Mark's instincts screamed at him to run, but it was impossible to abandon that pleading face, regardless of how monstrous it had become. "Mia, I'm right here!" he called, each syllable heavy with desperation. But the creature behind her laughed, an echoing cacophony that bounced off the walls like a pinball. "She cannot come back, Mark. She belongs to the darkness now. Join us, or be consumed." As Mark stared into the void where Mia once stood, dread washed over him. The shadows thickened, coiling tighter around his legs, pulling him closer to the phantom. He could feel the force of their collective despair, wrapping around him like an anaconda, squeezing tighter with each passing second. "Mark, please!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. "We need to go!" But he was rooted, his mind grappling with the horrific twist of fate. Behind Mia, the malevolent figure morphed, revealing ghastly features, skeletal limbs twisting impossibly in rhythm with the throbbing darkness. It stepped closer, yet somehow floated above the floor, its eyes shimmering with unholy glee. "I can help you find her," it hissed, the smell of decay wafting toward him with every breath. "All you have to do is give in." Suddenly, Sam, clinging tightly to his mother's side, chimed in. "I want Mia! Bring her back!" The innocence of his voice cut through the malevolence, even if just for a brief moment. Mark's heart twisted. "No, Sam! Stay back!" He felt paralyzed, a puppet with tangled strings, struggling against the urge to reach for his daughter, his heart so full of love that it blurred the line between reality and illusion. The smirk on the figure's face widened. "Love, such a potent power, but here it's nothing but a curse, sending you deeper into the abyss." Mark's lungs tightened. "Get out of our heads!" he bellowed, trying to block out the entity's words. He turned to Sarah, determination flaring beside the dread. "We have to break through. We can't let them win." Without warning, the shadows released a guttural roar, reverberating through the room, desperate to consume everything around them. Mark lunged forward, determined to save Mia, to pull her back from the dark. But just before he could reach her, the air crackled, illuminating the figure looming over him. Its form flickered, revealing a series of faces, hungry eyes and twisted mouths crying out for release, all echoing a single refrain of anguish. The chaos climbed to a crescendo, ensnaring them in a web of despair. "Mia!" Mark screamed, reaching for her again, only to find his hands grasping nothing but air. Suddenly a blinding light burst forth, scattering the shadows in frantic retreat. The laughter transformed, morphing into cries of pure rage. Mark, Sarah, and Sam were thrown to the ground as the shadows writhed in pain, retreating into the far corners of the room. But amid the chaos, a chilling realization sank in. The light was not a savior. It was a harbinger of something worse. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing hold of Sarah and Sam, dragging them toward the doorway they had entered through. The laughter returned, louder this time, echoing from every side, taunting them as they fled. But with every step they took, the walls began closing in, shrinking with the shadows, urging them to turn back. What lay ahead? Was Mia truly lost forever, or merely waiting on the other side of darkness, beckoning him to join her? As they plunged deeper, the shadows breathing heavily behind them, uncertain dread wrapped around their hearts. The exit grew dimmer, too dim. What awaited them in the next room could either be salvation or a far worse nightmare. The doorway loomed ahead, a gaping maw that promised escape, yet reeked of lingering horrors. Mark propelled his family forward, adrenaline surging through his veins. The shadows wailed, shrill and haunting, a chorus of despair that echoed all around them. He could feel their cold breath on his neck, chasing him, threatening to drag him back into the abyss. "Faster!" he urged, his voice strained. Sam's tiny legs struggled to keep pace, and Sarah clutched him tightly, fear painted across her face. "Mark!" Her voice wavered, filled with panic as the walls pulsated, closing in. Walls that whispered, chanting their doom. Ahead, the light flickered, illuminating half-formed shadows that danced along the surfaces, grim figures that seemed to beckon to Mark. He glanced back. Mia was gone, relinquished to the dark. An ache settled in his chest. Was this truly the end? With every step, the temperature plummeted. Ice coursed through their bodies, constricting their movements. Sarah stumbled, nearly losing her grip on Sam. Mark reached out, steadying her. She shook her head, her expression desperate. "I can't. There's something wrong. They're waiting." The shadows surged forward again, their laughter a chilling symphony that filled the corridor. It was a sound that dug deep into Mark's mind, both captivating and terrifying. He couldn't bear to look back. Not now. "Just keep moving," he urged, igniting a flicker of hope. "We can't let them win." But as they approached the doorway, the shadows twisted, morphing into grotesque shapes, their faces contorted in sinister glee. Mark saw a fleeting glimpse of something. Mia's fleeting smile danced within the swirling darkness, vibrant and out of reach, pulling at his heart. "Mia!" he screamed, panic surging. The shadows writhed as if reacting to his cry, the cacophony intensifying, mocking him. But in midst of this chaos, a sliver of hope broke through. There, the doorway. Its outline shimmered, almost inviting. They were almost there. The screams of despair and the whispers of darkness reached a fever pitch, turning into a screeching howl that surged through the air, threatening to swallow them whole. "Go, now!" Mark shouted, thrusting forward, pushing Sarah and Sam ahead of him. Together they crossed the threshold, tumbling out into darkness. They landed hard on a cold, cracked floor. The air stung like ice, filling their lungs with a sense of dread that seeped into their bones. Around them, the room was dim, lit by a single flickering bulb overhead. The walls, lined with peeling wallpaper, were stained, dark, malevolent stains that seemed to throb with life. "What? Where are we?" Sam's small voice felt too loud, piercing the oppressive silence. Mark scrambled to his feet, scanning the unfamiliar landscape. He felt the weight of shadows pressing against the walls, coiling like serpents in the dark corners of the room. "Mark, what do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled as she held on to Sam, their eyes darting around for any sign of escape. Before he could respond, soft sobbing echoed through the air, rising from the shadows. Mark's heart sank. It was unmistakable. A familiar sound that twisted in his gut. "Mia? Is that you?" he called desperately. But as silence fell, something worse happened. The shadows began to coalesce, taking a form that sent a chill down Mark's spine. A figure emerged, its features obscured but undeniably human. "Welcome back!" It hissed, sounding eerily like Mia, yet distorted, chilling. Mark felt Sarah shrink beside him, paralyzed in fear. "What is that?" he gasped, and suddenly he understood. This room, the darkness, it wasn't a barrier. It was a trap, drawing them in forever. "What do you want from us?" he shouted into the suffocating void, adrenaline racing. Fear clawed at every inch of him. "We want you to stay," the figure replied, its voice crawling under his skin. Mark stepped back, pulling Sarah and Sam with him. But the room constricted, and a suffocating darkness swept over them, pressing against their chests. What lay beyond this shadowy barrier? Was it a way out, or merely a deeper descent into darkness? The room seemed to pulse with life, ready to devour them whole. As reality warped around him, Mark whispered, "We have to fight." But could they hold on to their sanity, or was it already too late? They stood on a precipice, teetering between salvation and eternal darkness. Mark could sense the answer, horrific and undeniable, looming just out of sight. The shadows hissed, curling tighter around them like a noose. Mark could feel the air thickening, turning stale, as if the very life was being drained from the room. Sarah's grip on Sam tightened, her knuckles white against his small frame. He could see her eyes widen in terror as the grotesque figure stepped forward, its form wavering in and out of existence. "Get away!" Mark shouted, instinctively placing himself between the children and the horror that loomed before them. The figure twisted unnaturally, a mocking simper playing upon its lips. The familiarity in its voice made him shudder. "We've missed you, Mark," it taunted, gesturing toward the walls, where shadowy faces watched with hollow eyes. Was that Mia, in their depths? Was this the same fate that had befallen her, absorbed into the darkness? "No!" Mark yelled, desperation fueling each syllable. "You're not her! You're just a trick!" "Are you so sure?" it replied, the tone dripping with malice. "All we want is to have you back. Isn't that what you desire?" The walls bulged as if breathing, hot tendrils of despair wrapping around him, threatening to choke out reason. Yet behind that despair was a melody of memories, moments shared with Mia. Laughter surged through his mind like a misplaced harmony, promising warmth but leading only to dread. Mark's heart hammered in his chest. "We have to go. We have to fight." "Fight against what?" the figure asked mockingly. "The pull of the ones you care about? You cannot escape the truth of your desires, Mark. You lost her once. You would do anything to hold on to her, wouldn't you?" The question resonated deep within. He had sacrificed everything to keep his family safe, but what could he sacrifice now? Sarah and Sam clung to him, their wide eyes filled with fear, their very existence a tether to reality. "No!" he urged, his thoughts racing. "Not like this. We won't—" The room trembled, shadows swirling in a tempest, pulling at their legs, their bodies weighed down as if by gravity itself. They were sinking, being drawn toward the center of the room, into that gaping void where betrayal lingered. "It's just a trick." He had to believe that. "Mark!" Sarah's voice broke through the din, frail yet strong. "We can find her. We will make it out." The cries from the shadows surged, a flood of anguished wails echoing against the walls. They rose to a thunderous scream that sent vibrations through the floor, cracking the tiles beneath them. "Don't listen to them!" Mark shouted, but uncertainty clawed at him. Doubt writhed like a serpent within. What if this was the only way to find Mia? As if sensing his internal struggle, the figure advanced, shifting form, revealing a glimpse of Mia's sunlit smile that twisted into something sinister. "We can be whole again, Mark. Just let go of the light." "No!" Mark yelled, defiance tearing through him like wildfire. Suddenly, an idea broke through the storm of despair. He had to confront it. Emily was waiting. If the shadows were to be quelled, he needed to fight back the deepest fear, the loss of his family. Mark took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. We can't turn back. Mia wouldn't want this. We need to remember her as she was, not what this darkness wants to make her. The shadows writhed in anger, churning wildly around him. A shriek echoed, the room seeming to rip apart, shaking the very foundations of their reality. "Fight with me! Hold on!" Her whisper brushed against his resolve, and for a heartbeat the shadows hesitated. But what would it take to break free? Was this just another illusion? The moment felt fragile, hanging in the balance. "Let's find Mia!" he cried, determination burning within. With a jolt, they surged together, hearts pounding in unison, forcing back against the tide of malevolence. But as they pressed forward, Mark's vision blurred, and he felt himself slipping once more into the black. Was escape truly within reach, or was this just the start of a more profound torment? In the depths of the shadows, laughter erupted, a cacophony of madness that filled the air with dread. Stay. Forever. Was this truly a battle worth fighting, or a breadcrumb trail leading deeper into the abyss? Mark's resolve swayed as the darkness lunged closer. Time was dwindling, and the weight of despair was heavier than ever. They thrashed and pulled, but would it be enough to sever the ties of the past and find a way out before it was too late? The darkness pulsated, wrapping around them like a predator closing in on its prey. Mark felt a cold sweat drench his shirt as the room warped, the walls bending like warped funhouse mirrors. His heart raced faster, each beat amplifying the haunting laughter echoing all around them. "Mark!" Sarah's voice sliced through the chaos, trembling yet strong. "What do we do?" He cast a frantic glance back at her and Sam. Their innocence was a fragile shield against the encroaching horror, but it felt like a threadbare veil. He clenched his fists, trying to muster courage through the overwhelming dread. "Hold on to me!" he shouted, forcing reassurance into his voice, even as the shadows danced around them, writhing like living nightmares. "We can do this!" The figure glided closer, its grotesque features morphing as it reached out with spectral hands. "You cannot escape what you desire, Mark. You know the truth." A shiver ran down his spine. Wasn't it true? Hadn't he spent countless nights wishing he could hold Mia just one more time? The struggle between hope and despair crashed over him like a wave. "Remember her, Mark," Sarah pleaded, her grip tightening like a vice around his arm. "Remember how she looked at you. The laughter, the love." "No, no, no," he yelled, shaking his head as if he could physically reject the memories threatening to swallow him whole. The shadows hissed, clawing at his resolve. They attempted to drag him under, whispering sweet murders of nostalgia that tugged cruelly at his heart. Suddenly, a burst of clarity pierced the gloom. "This isn't Mia," he yelled, voice rising above the tempest. "This is a lie. You're not real." With each proclamation, he felt the weight lift, though the shadows roared in protest, their cacophony rising in a horrifying crescendo. The figure faltered, twisting in upon itself, its expression flickering between Mia's smile and a sinister grimace. "Your denial matters not," it hissed, venom dripping from its words. "You cannot escape the inevitable. Your family will be mine." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Mark ground out, heart pounding in his throat, as he suddenly realized the power of belief and love. In a moment of fierce determination, he felt Sarah and Sam's warmth seeping through his grasp. He drew strength from their presence, channeling every affectionate memory he had of Mia, the sweet sound of her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she saw them. "Together!" he shouted, grounding himself in their love. "Let her light guide us, not this darkness." As if responding to his plea, the air vibrated, and a bright light emerged within the shadows, creating a pulsating barrier. The darkness screeched, swirling wildly, retreating from their collective warmth. "Keep holding on," Mark urged, their bond solidifying like an impenetrable shield. We can push through." The shadows howled, their voices blending into an orchestra of madness. They lunged, but Mark planted his feet, drawing strength from the children at his side. The light intensified, forcing the darkness to flicker and burn, twisting like smoke in the wind. But just as they thought they were breaking through, the figure shrieked, echoing their names in a twisted parody. "Do you really think you can leave? Remember, there are darker corners yet unexplored." A gust of icy air swept through the room, and the light faltered, casting them momentarily into a chilling gloom. Mark felt a flicker of fear. What could that mean? Were remnants of the shadows still reaching for them? He tightened his grip, determination flaring up dangerously deep inside. "We're not done yet!" he yelled as the darkness coiled around him, the weight of despair attempting one last pull toward hopelessness. "Together!" Sarah screamed, giving him the strength he desperately needed. But even as they pressed on, the laughter echoed back, haunting them within the wall of shadows that clawed for their very souls. They were not done yet, but the end felt closer than ever. And in that moment of turmoil, Mark couldn't shake the gnawing fear in his gut. What if there was something even darker waiting for them just beyond the light? As the shadows pressed in, reality began to dissolve, and Mark realized the fight might just be the beginning. The brightness flickered, trembling under the weight of chilling whispers that filled the air. Mark gritted his teeth, fighting against the suffocating pressure of despair clutching at him. "Don't let go!" His voice was raw, strained as shadows clawed at their barrier. The darkness twisted, pulling itself into grotesque shapes that whispered secrets, half-formed memories echoing his deepest fears. "Please, help us." Sam's small voice quivered, breaking the chain of their collective strength. Mark glanced down, seeing the terror painted across his son's face. It shattered him. "Look at me, Sam," Mark urged, crouching to meet his son's frightened eyes. "We're not finished. Hold on to Sarah and me. Feel that light inside you." A trembling nod from Sam ignited something deep within Mark. It was the love that had built this shield against the pull of darkness. With renewed focus, he grasped Sarah's arm tighter, feeling her warmth bleed into him. The figure responded to their unity, shrieking in a frenzy. "You think this is strength?" The voice was a distorted mockery, layers of malice and seduction intertwined. "You're only delaying the inevitable. Will you fall so easily?" As it lunged forward, the air crackled, the light threatening to burst into flames. The shadows writhed and shrieked like wounded beasts. Mark felt the energy building, their connection forming a spiral of brilliance. He realized that the memories, the love, were more than just fuel. They were an anchor. "Together!" he roared, channeling fury and defiance through every fiber of his being. The barrier gleamed, pushing back against the eerie onslaught. For a moment, the shadows sputtered like a flame in the wind, drawing gasps from the spectre. But then it snapped back, eyes narrowing, becoming a living void. "Your bonds cannot protect you forever. Darkness has teeth, and it knows what you fear." Cold dread seeped into Mark's bones as the figure morphed, shifting into images. Mia's laughter twisted into wails, her face contorted in anguish. The weight of guilt wrapped around him like chains. "Fight it, Mark!" Sarah shouted, her eyes brimming with fierce determination. She pulled Sam closer, heartbeats in sync, forming a triangle of warmth against the chilling shadows that spread like a slithering serpent. But the figure advanced again, teeth glimmering in the dim light, laughter echoing in a mocking chorus. "Bonds can be broken, trust too easily shaken. I know your darkest truths." "Shut up!" Mark screamed, anger boiling over, panic twisting into resolve. "You don't know us. You don't own our memories." As he shouted, the light brightened again, a new wave of energy fueled by his fear and anger. The barrier surged forward, pushing against the weight of despair that had pinned them down. The shadows let loose an agonized howl. "Just a taste, just one moment," it called, fingers reaching for them, claw-like and desperate. Mark caught a glimpse of shifting darkness beyond the spectral figure, an abyss opening, shades of nightmares swirling and merging. What lay hidden there? Something primal stirred within him, a nagging thought that dared to bubble to the surface. But before he could form another thought, they were plunged into a tempest of shadows that collapsed upon them like a tidal wave. "Hold on!" Mark shouted, feeling the world tremble. The shield flickered violently, struggling against a torrent of memories unleashed, vicious and taunting. Then clarity struck. If darkness fears light, what if it stalks the light? His heart raced, not just with fear, but with the dawning of a revelation as the children clung tightly at his sides. "Together!" he bellowed as they were engulfed. But a sudden insight gripped Mark's heart. The shadows might not be the only threat. What if they were a mere illusion, a diversion? As the darkness clasped around them, a chilling question echoed through his mind. Was it ever really about escaping this place? Or was there far more lurking just beyond their grasp? And somewhere in the depths of the shadows, a deeper laugh rung out, malevolent and enticing, waiting for the moment they would surrender to the creeping fear. What are they truly battling against? Mark's heart thundered in his chest as shadows whisked around them, swirling like predators on the prowl. The darkness shrieked, clawing for their minds, twisting memories into nightmares. He felt Sarah's grip tighten around Sam, a lifeline in this chilling abyss. Their collective warmth beat back against the tingling cold that threatened to consume them whole. "Stay together," Mark urged, each word a desperate incantation against despair. They were a united front, yet every flicker of the light felt fragile, like a candle's flame battling a maelstrom. The grotesque figure sneered, its form undulating, embodying torment. "Do you really believe you can escape? You will fall into darkness, not unlike the others." Images of lost souls twisted around them, fragments of laughter merging into scale-tipped whispers. "Look at what awaits you." The shadows shimmered, revealing faces twisted in agonizing expressions. Children caught in the same trap, lost to their own despair. "No!" Mark roared, his voice breaking through the clamor. "They're not us. We are stronger than your lies." A pulse of warmth ignited within him, the core of love fueling his resistance. The figure recoiled, shadows flickering in response. The darkness hesitated, sensing its hold slipping. "You think love protects you?" it screeched. "Not just love," Sarah shouted, lifting her chin defiantly. "Our memories, our hope. What we have is worth fighting for." Each declaration reinforced their bond, building an energy that surged outward, pushing against the emptiness. The shadows shrieked, trying to reel them back into oblivion, but the ferocity of their connection simmered brightly. "Remember her!" Mark's voice boomed with a newfound resolve. "Mia loves us and we love her. That light is our anchor." With those words, a radiant beam erupted, cutting through the shadows, illuminating the room with brilliant clarity. The figure screeched, contorting wildly as it struggled against the light, lips curling back like a rotting mask. "You'll pay for this!" it howled, voice twisted and raw. "Your hope is a curse! Join us, or be lost forever!" Mark's heart burned with fierce righteousness. "We'll never join you. You don't own our memories." He felt the warmth of Sarah and Sam combine with his own, forming a shield against despair. They surged forward, drawing on that radiant light propelled by love, a power that shattered the illusions of darkness. Shadows shrieked, reeling as anguish rippled through the room. The walls pulsated as secrets, long buried, began to scream. "Together!" Mark shouted again, their voices a chorus rising above the chaos. With every step they took, the darkness faded just a little more, revealing the once gnarled schoolhouse to be nothing but a mausoleum of lost hopes. Broken desks were remnants of the past, dusty reminders of innocence lost. Mark felt the shadows falter. "We are not alone," he cried, hope blossoming in his chest, infectious and vital. "We have each other, As they advanced, the shadows buckled and twisted, the smirking figure faltering at the edges, its hold slipping. "Fools!" it bellowed, but its words trembled. Mark drew courage from every precious memory. The day Mia learned to ride a bike, the laughter shared at family dinners, the warmth of her hugs at bedtime. Beneath this layered history, there was truth, a promise of love that could catapult them to freedom. The light surged again, so brilliant it felt almost tangible, spilling over the remaining shadows like a tidal wave. A scream erupted from the figure, a distorted mixture of anguish and rage. "No, you cannot extinguish me!" But Mark and his family were unwavering. Step by step they pushed forward, determined to embrace the light, for it was now their greatest ally. The darkness around them recoiled, seething with contempt. Finally, they reached the heart of the turmoil, the pulsating mass of shadow where the figure writhed in desperation. "Join me or die!" it screeched, but the truth in Mark's heart shone brighter than the lies. Without a moment of doubt, Mark lunged forward, feeling Sarah's hand clasp his tightly as Sam clung to his side. "We choose love. We choose light." In one swift motion, the warmth enveloped them, blasting through the dark and breaking the hold of despair. The ground shook beneath them as the haunting figure twisted and dissolved into vapor, smothered by the brilliance of their collective spirit. And just like that, the shadows shattered. They found themselves standing outside the schoolhouse, sunlight flooding the clearing in brilliant golden hues. The trees stood tall, their branches swaying gently in the breeze, as if welcoming them back into the world of warmth and laughter. "Mia!" Mark gasped, looking around frantically. Suddenly there she was, a small figure emerging from behind the trees, wide eyes staring up at them, a wide smile illuminating her face. "Daddy!" she shouted, running forward, pure joy radiating from her tiny frame. Mark knelt low, arms wide open. The warmth of her embrace knocked the breath from him as he held her close, relief flooding his senses. Sam rushed in, squeezing them as they formed a tight, unbreakable circle. "Never let go," Mark murmured, the weight of their ordeal lifting, the shadows fading into memory. Family was their strength. Love would always win against despair. "We're home," Sarah whispered, tears glistening in her eyes, hope flourishing in the sweet sunlight. And for the first time since arriving at Willow Creek, their laughter echoed through the trees, harmonizing with hope, breaking the chains of the past. They'd faced the darkness, but now light enveloped them as they stepped forward together, ready for whatever came next. Now that you've experienced the chills and thrills of this story, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the story alive. Your support is crucial. And don't forget to flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Let's hear what you think. Finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to dive into the darkness ready for light. Don't wait even one more second. It's your chance to be part of our growing family.